So here's the introduction to the S2000, as I really haven't done that, other than they went straight to buying it from LHT and building it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and drive the thing for the first time, but you'll notice the bubble's empty. The Silverstone car is gone, so now this is my S2000. A couple of things you'll notice, the factory wheels, the car's too low. I'm going to raise it up. I want it at like a 1-finger gap. The suspension settled a bit and settled a little lower than I want it to be. So I'm going to raise the thing up to give me like a half a finger or maybe 1-finger gap in the front and rear. There's too much camber in the rear. There's 3.1 degrees of camber. It's just too much. So I'm going to have to get that worked out. I don't know why the alignment shop couldn't dial in any less. Maybe when I put the spacers on. I'm going to put some spacers on until I figure out what wheels I'm going to do. Whatever wheels I decide to do, they're going to take 4 months to get. So I guess I better start figuring that out. The exhaust is probably also going to go. There's too much drone. I love the way it looks. It actually sounds really good. I'll probably do an exhaust video this weekend, but it's too much. Hurts my brain. But notice the sunk look. This look is terrible. The car is really low, and the wheels, the offset is sunk. It just doesn't work very well. So I'll have to adjust that. But the paint is okay. I mean, there's C-quartz on it, so I'm going to get that off. We're probably going to actually do a detail on this at the same time I'm doing the Raptor. But there's some swirling, some scratching. I'm going to pull this expel off the front. You can see the line. I'm sure you can see it. See the line there. So I mean, the paint looks good on camera, but if I got a light out, it's going to have to be adjusted. Plus, if you'll take notice, so just follow this light. Notice the difference in orange peel on the expel. Gosh, I hate expel versus the paint. I don't know how you people deal with this stuff. It looks terrible. There's a huge difference between them. Just the massive amount of orange peel on top of orange peel. So that's coming off. And then we'll make a decision. I'll make a decision on what to do on depending on how it comes off. I hope I can get it off the headlights without ruining them. And then I'll make a decision on whether I'm going to wrap the car completely or not. I'm going to lean toward hopefully not, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But in general, the car is awesome. So, phase 1 of the car is to get it lowered, get the supercharger installed, get the exhaust done. So phase 2 is going to be let's get the offsets dialed on the factory wheels. So I got some spacers I'm going to put on, to temporarily hold me over. Because I can't ride like this. I'm going to raise it up a little bit. And then once I decide what wheels I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do 17 by 9.5 plus 50 square setup front and rear, so that way I can do brakes. Just driving this car with 400 horsepower, which is really like 470 horsepower at the crank, I really need some brakes. It's going to be a necessity. These tires are great though. These RE71Rs. Anyway, so let me just shut up about it. We'll go drive it. You've seen the videos in at LHT, but I got the GoPro set up, so we're going to go out and take it for a spin. I'm going to tell you about my thoughts on what I'm going to end up, what other little modifications I'm going to be doing here coming up, and give you my thoughts on how much I enjoy it. All right. So the first thing I'll mention, and you guys probably won't be able to hear this because of the way the resonant frequency of the exhaust, but the towed exhaust setup, the header, the test pipe, the center section. Of course, the center section had to be modified, and I think the center section largely had to be modified because the 06 and up AP2 US, the exhaust tunnel is different. And I didn't know this. I've been messing with S2000s for a long time, and I never noticed that before. So that's that's the reason why I'm pretty sure why it didn't fit. I just wish that there was some documentation that told us that, so you wouldn't go ahead and buy it and put it on your car. So I'm going to be doing or addressing the exhaust. It's great. I mean, it sounds really good. Like I said, I'm going to make an exterior video here soon, probably this weekend, about driving back and forth like I normally do in my exhaust making spot. But it's just, there's just too much drone. I'm a grown up. If I was 25, I'd probably keep it that way because of the look, and the exhaust does sound good. But it's just too much boominess from 3 to 3,400 RPMs. It's just, and that's where you spend almost all your time in this car driving around town. The other thing you'll notice in this video, hopefully you'll be able to hear it or pick it up, the gosh darn supercharger sounds like a jet engine. It's really loud, way louder than I thought it was going to be. I like it, so it's cool. Another interesting stat is when I drove the car with my buddy, we're both 240, 220, 230, 240, it felt uber slow in comparison to what it feels like with just me in the car. Anyway, let's go for a spin. Got to address and adjust the hardtop strake here. It's vibrating, driving me crazy. It's squeaking, creaking. So I'll have to fix that soon. After breaking the clutch in, the clutch is really great. This Clutchmaster's clutch with a lightweight flywheel is perfection. So John at LHT really knows what the heck he's talking about. I know some people have talked about, ACT is the way to go and the Clutchmaster is going to leak and whatever, but I don't know. This thing is, whatever is the engagement, pedal feel, everything is fantastic. So I'm really excited about the clutch. That's one thing, I've never done a clutch before, so I've never done a clutch on any car that I've ever owned. So this is the first time I've done that. And I'm really pleasantly surprised. It feels very OEM, but the engagement is fantastic. The car's not warm yet, so. But the ability to be able to just get it in gear, that snap that you get from a manual transmission that's properly been engaged properly, it's really easy to do. It really feels great. So again, the lower, how low the car is feels fine, so the balance of it feels great. There are 215, 45, 17s up front, and they're 255, 40, 17s in the rear. And these are Bridgestone Potenza RE 71Rs. They're really good tires. I like them a lot. They're quiet. The grip is great. I haven't pushed the car all that much yet because I'm still braking. I have about 320 miles on the clutch, 300 miles on the clutch. So I haven't really been driving all that aggressively. Not that I would drive all that aggressively anyway, but there is, again, this drone right here, which the mic, I don't know that you're gonna get that or feel, but the drone is really obnoxious. But the power this thing makes, the way it delivers it. So, with the Supercharged, again, you know, we're a 2,800 pound car roughly with 404 wheel horsepower, 263 foot-pounds of torque. But you know, if you look at the torque curve, I mean, it builds linearly just like an S2000, so very little torque down low. And so I found that, you know, even hammering on the car, now I haven't launched it yet, but even hammering on the car, you know, coming up the rev range, there's nobody, you know, there's very little torque, and then, you know, it builds linearly. So we don't, you know, I don't have the traction issues I thought I would have. The rear end feels super planted. And so I'm gonna be honest, you know, when I first got in the car, I'm like, what did I do? You know, it's loud, it feels very busy. Like, it feels like, you know, the car feels like I'm going 40 miles an hour, it feels like I'm going 70. It just, at first, I'm like, what did I get myself into? But then I've been driving it all week, and I'm loving it. I'm telling you, I absolutely love it. Another reason why I'm loving it even more than the previous is I kept the CR wheel, that wheel from, even with the lowered seat. So I have the backyard special lowered seat rail on here. I didn't have enough space to like move, like that extra, say, 3/4 of an inch fatness of the wheel just sat on my knees, and so I had no room to move around. I also couldn't, you know, I couldn't steer all the way through. It just wasn't working for me. So let's put the windows down and you can hear what this thing sounds like. This is second gear. There is some notchiness. You see, I just missed third there. I didn't miss it, but I hit the gate. The sounds this thing makes. It's crazy. Blow off, like a little, I guess it's not a blow off, but a little bypass. You hear it dump the boost. I think John said we were running, what, 16 PSI, something like that. And, you know, air fuel ratio around 12.1. But man, it feels so good. It pulls hard, but very streetable, very manageable. Like, I feel like I'm not, like, I was afraid that it would feel like under wide open throttle, that it would feel like absolute chaos, you know, that it would just be too much for me to handle. But it's not, you know, the rear end is planted, you know, I don't feel like I'm sliding around all over the place. It feels good. Easy to rev match. Heel towing in this car, forget about it for me. That's shifting at like 7,800. I can, you know, we set the rev limiter, I think, at 86, but I haven't had the courage to get up there yet. It revs pretty darn quickly. There's a fourth gear pull. You know, and the brakes in this car are really capable. I just think I want some more. You know, I want to be able to stand on the pedal and stop the car, and so I think I'm going to do a Stop Tech front and rear kit. Since the Toda exhaust is so droney, and I'm probably going to abandon the whole Toda thing, the whole Toda idea, I'm kind of breaking that seal of my JDM dreams and just going with whatever works. So the only issue I've had, again, is that sometimes if I'm not paying really good attention, if I'm under load, third gear, I don't know why, third gear, just I'll tend to hit the edge of the gate, you know, where it's about to engage, and it'll stop it, and I'll have to come back to neutral and then go into gear. I've only noticed it in third, and I think what's happening is I'm just not, you know, I need to pay more attention to making sure it, you know, it engages properly. But you hear the supercharger just whining the whole time. Hear that? I wasn't expecting it to be that loud. I like it though. I don't know if it's a placebo, but the car just feels too low to me. I'm not getting any body roll or anything like that, but I would feel more comfortable with it up a little bit more. The other thing that's shocking is that, you know, with the car lowered, even with 215s, the steering is so heavy, so much heavier than it was. And so I'm like, well, if the steering is going to be heavy lowered, it's a lot heavier than I remembered it with my previous lowered S2000s. If the steering is going to be that heavy, I might as well just go square. So I think I'm going to do the square setup. But I've changed my mind about 15 times thus far. It's pretty sick, people. It's so fun. But, you know, at speed, it feels like I'm going so much faster. You know, the car does feel a whole lot more, you know, the potential to be out of control naturally than my GT3 or GT350 that are so balanced. You know, there's a lack of balance in power versus, you know, how the car is handling it. But it's crazy fun, like insanely fun. And, you know, even with all the horsepower, again, I've never had anything this heavily modified before in my life, you know, over stock. I don't think it's too much. I mean, it's still fun. The only thing I find myself doing is like driving that like 50%, like let's say you were shifting from first to second to go like mid throttle, but you know, rev it to say 7,000. I don't find myself doing that. I'm either on it or I'm off it. Here, the supercharger idling. I can't imagine what people are thinking. They hear that thing sitting next to you at a stoplight. But it definitely makes me want to hold on to the wheel. And you see the traction control light bouncing. You know, the traction control isn't all that useful on this car anyway, but you definitely see it. You know, like there, that little first gear pull. I'm not even at wide open throttle. It's, you know, it's kicking on. The little light is kicking off and on. But even with just 255s in the rear, the rear end doesn't step out like I thought it would. I thought I'd be sliding all over the place. And partly it's these tires are really good, but it's not bad. But to be just idling here and you hear that whine, it's pretty insane. I still think, you know, the greatest part about this car, and it's always been one of the greatest parts about it, is this manual. The gearbox is just incredible. I'm telling you, again, there was a really short stint when I drove it for the first time. You know, for a little bit, I'm like, it's just too much. But now that I've gotten used to it, it's exactly what I wanted. Nasty, super fun, but comfortable enough to get in and drive to the office on on like a Thursday. It's cool. And then, you know, I'm gonna be able to hang with whatever I want to hang with, if that were ever an instance. So it makes this car formidable in the, you know, the performance department. You know, because this thing, you know, people talk about, oh, you're messing up a perfect CR. I think the car was supercharged before anyway, so that it was already molested. But, you know, I just don't want a 200 horsepower car. I'm not interested in that. Greatest gearbox ever created. But I can't even really hear the exhaust over the drone. That's the problem. Swing this thing around. I don't care who you are. That makes me smile. If you're sitting in this thing, you'd be smiling too. Obviously, the supercharger takes any kind of induction noise out of the equation, replaces it with that whine. But then you get the cool bypass, you know, the blow off of when you're, you know, when you're really on it. There's just the only thing with this car, I mean, there's just so much going on between exhaust note, drone, supercharger, small, short wheelbase. Feels like we're going, you know, we're going 59 miles an hour. It feels like we're going 100. You know, in comparison to, you know, newer cars, bigger cars, and that's part of the appeal. And so the question is, do you really need this much horsepower in this, you know, small of a car? It certainly isn't worthless. I like it. Yeah, because I'm a pretty reserved dude, you know. High horsepower is not something I really care about. None of my cars are, you know, at the pinnacle of horsepower. Like, I've never chased horsepower. I certainly haven't chased torque. You know, torque to me makes the car, it just makes the car harder to deal with. You know, you have tons and tons of low-end torque. Yeah, it's great for changing lanes in third gear, but, you know, I like to kind of beat on the car, you know, or rev it out. It's just my thing. I'm not saying, you know, lots of torque is a bad thing. Just that, you know, my preference is, you know, if I have to sacrifice, I would sacrifice torque for linear power. But again, it does inspire you to hold on to the wheel with both hands. So cool. So I got the suspension, you know, 50% of the way dialed in. You know, it feels a little tram-liney just because of the, you know, how low it is and how much, gosh, camber I have. I want to dial out some of that camber, get it raised up a little bit. But even this low, the Olin suspension feels fantastic. The car doesn't feel bumpy or harsh or anything. And the only thing I feel is that, you know, the steering is really heavy. Part of that's the hydraulic, you know, steering rack in this car, but a large percentage of it is because I'm just too low. Too low, too much camber in front. Yeah, because I'm only running 215s. I'm not even running 255s, the big tires up front. That's what I'm really wondering, if doing a bigger sway bar and doing 255s is going to be acceptable to me. You know, is it going to dial out all the feel? I don't think it will. You guys are going to yell at me for holding my hand on the shift lever. That's just where it naturally goes on an S2000. Just sit right there. But I do feel like I can, you know, I can shift down, you know, the fifth gear. We're going 39, 40 miles an hour, and I can just kind of cruise. I can put the AC on and be comfortable. And then there's that drone. Right there, Drone City. Again, it would be very livable drone, you know, if you're not like the exhaust aficionado that I have become. With any 70mm exhaust, it comes with that. That drone becomes a part of it. So you hear that, the supercharger on, always. That whine, super cool. telling you, sometimes it gets notchy. I don't know what's up with that. Feels a little all over the place. I need to get that dialed. I feel like I'm Brian Orr steering here, back left to right. Let's go windows back down. Feels like, you know, when I'm on it, almost feels like the front end's lifting up a little. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like I'm kind of snaking, but the rear end is not, you know, because I'm not going wide open throttle. Wide open throttle, the traction control's engaged, like I can feel the rear end starting to slip, but it's like the front end feels, I don't know how to explain it. It feels floaty. Wow, this Olin suspension is so good. This is such a bumpy section of the road. The car feels very planted. But the brakes are going to be the limitation. See, as long as I pay attention to third gear, it engages really easily, but I don't know, I feel like but this is, you know, this is cracking up to be what I want it to be. I think most of you that have watched, if you're newer to the channel, I'll tell it, like, if I'm not happy, I'll sell the freaking thing, you know. I'm not afraid to admit, you know, the Toyota exhaust is not what I hoped it would be. I've been dreaming about this thing forever, but I'm almost certain, and I need to stop making certainty comments. This is the car that I wanted. You know, this is what I was hoping it would be. It would, you know, it reminded me of what I liked about the car so much, and then, you know, just taking it to the next level, you know, from a modification perspective. Like the little squeaking from the hard top isn't bothering me enough. Like, I was afraid if the car would hold up for me in comparison to my other cars. This is a really bumpy road too. I mean, bumper for Florida anyway. Yeah, I want more front end grip. I want it higher. I don't want it this low. So I think I want a bigger sway bar. And I'm gonna do those wider front wheels and tires. Clutch is really good. I really like it. It's also, you know, I don't have a clutch delay valve anymore. You know, the OEM, like my 06 that I just sold, has that clutch delay valve. And so that's why you get a nice snappy, you get that nice snappy engagement. I let off the clutch, the gear's engaged. Let's get a little sideways here. with the supercharger, I mean, on an S2000, you're still going to want to manage the, you know, the revs. You're going to want to keep it in the revs because it, you know, it doesn't make a lot of torque down low, even still. Notice how I have to steer because I hit my leg, so I have to walk it. I have to teach myself how to walk the wheel again. Listen to that. So cool though. So anyway, I'll be doing more driving. You know, I'll probably take it down to those roads and, you know, go into Orlando soon. I'm going to do some exhaust, interior, exterior exhaust specific videos. I'm sure I'll make a video of the process when I, you know, raise the thing up. Show you how the, you know, how the coilovers work. And certainly, you know, have more information for you on this sucker. Let's pull it into the bubble. This thing fits in the bubble a lot easier than the other cars. Now listen, you have equal supercharger and exhaust. Anyway, thanks for watching. What happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor.